Hello, welcome back to teleSUR English, and join us as we broadcast live the 78th debate session of the United Nations General Assembly.
Distinguido señor presidente.
President of this General Assembly, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished heads of state, representatives and delegates here present, citizens of the world. Today marks 1 year since I last appeared before this Assembly as the first female President of the Republic of Honduras. I arose out of resistance in the streets, fighting the coup d'etat that overthrew Manuel Zelaya Rosales, a democratically elected president. The progress made and the results of my government have already been recognized by the international community and by financial organizations. We have seen greater economic growth, rescued public finances through the cancellation of corrupt trust accounts, a single window system, fiscal discipline, the prompt payment of onerous debt, and reduced inflation, as well as a decreased risk profile for the country. With the National Congress, we repealed the Secrets Law. This was an instrument that served the corruption of the former regime. We repealed the ZEDE law, the law on employment and economic development zones, which split the country into 17 areas shared between 25 economic groups. In security, we have already achieved a significant cut in extortion, murders, and violence. We've done so through the Resolving Crime program, through interventions in the penitentiary centers, and through a state of emergency. Furthermore, it's important to note, for the benefit of my gratuitous opponents, that I have ordered and overseen the greatest increase in the budget of social sectors to reduce poverty, to improve education and healthcare. School meals are now provided for all children in primary schools. We have also brought back the historic program for free school enrollments, fuel subsidies, and free energy for the poorest. In addition, we've seen widespread bonuses for agricultural production, repairs to 12,000 neglected schools, efforts to foster production in all municipalities of Honduras. We've repaired the road network, and 8 new hospitals are being built. In 2022, the former President of Honduras was accused by the United States of conspiring and organizing for more than a decade in the trafficking of thousands of tons of drugs, of leading a criminal organization involving different people from the underworld, state authorities such as mayors, ministers, deputies, generals, and police chiefs, some of whom have already been convicted. These assailants who hijacked the state are today conspiring against my government. They are organized in an alliance of corrupt politicians and alleged civil society, with the aim of holding back the proposed structural changes that the people requested from me at the ballot box. They are the very same people who assassinated Morazan, and today they are opposing the adoption of the fiscal justice law. They are boycotting the election of the new Attorney General to perpetuate the impunity that they are used to, and to obstruct the arrival of the International Commission Against Corruption and Impunity, CICI. It's impossible to understand the magnitude of the tragedy that has befallen the majority of Honduran people and the constant caravans of emigrants that reach the United States if we overlook the 13 years of dictatorship overseen by the international community that was responsible for a six-fold increase in public debt and the highest rate of poverty in the history of Honduras, 74%. The Honduran people, in its noble aspiration for justice, has given me a robust mandate to combat and dismantle the narco-state and public-private corruption that plundered and destroyed our institutions, that corrupted popular will with electoral frauds, and which imposed state terrorism via death squads. Popular support has been made clear with the recent mobilizations of popular resistance at a national level, with hundreds of thousands of grateful men and women who have shown me their backing in the fight to return the rule of law and to restore the dignity of the Honduran people and the presidency of the Republic. This Monday, the 18th of September, upon my arrival in New York, after attending the summit of the G77 and China in Havana, Cuba, in line with the commitment made in my plan of government and in line with the Memorandum of Understanding signed with the UN in 2022, I gave the United Nations Secretary General the official proposal for an agreement to establish the International Commission Against Corruption and Impunity in Honduras, CICI. This is an impartial, autonomous and independent body, able to investigate and prosecute cases of high-impact corruption networks and financial crimes. This is the only way to clean up a state in which public institutions, the pirates of the political class, public-private partnerships, have been infiltrated by organized crime. Next year, I shall take up the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, and the Central American Integration System, SICA. This includes all of the great homeland dreamt up by the liberators and those of us who fight for the unity of South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico. Today, I propose to open spaces of dialogue between us, to craft proposals that resolve the challenges afflicting our region. We're not only one of the most unequal and poorest regions, we are also one with the lowest economic growth and most technologically backwards, all issues affecting our ability to tackle the threats that we're facing. Only by supporting each other will we be able to move forwards. We mustn't forget our brothers and sisters in Haiti. The humanitarian crisis of an oppressed and revolutionary nation warrants our full support and solidarity. At the third summit of the European Union and CELAC, held in July this year, I clearly expressed the views of Honduras on international matters, which, as I've mentioned here, need to be urgently resolved. On SICA, Central America, I wish here to state how important it is to boost the integration process. This is a process that has seen sluggish development over the last 30 years. For this reason, we need to show true political will, which allows us to advance in the customs union, in social and environmental policies, and in the safe movement of people and goods. Today, the great economic interests are coming face to face in the war in Ukraine. In the end, always, the poorest countries and peoples on earth are those most affected, crushed by inflation, food shortages, and high fuel prices. The complex military industry accounts for the majority of budgets in developed countries, with trillions and trillions of dollars. But this is in contrast to their indifference and incapacity to contribute to humanity and to protecting nature. The Bretton Woods world has come to the end of the road. Today, we must recognize that at the current pace, we won't be able to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and secure enough financing for climate adaptation. It's not an issue of taking steps, but rather proposing changes to the economic system that requires a deep-rooted commitment to humanity and to nature. There is no invisible hand. There is no spillover. Practice has shown us that the application of global capitalism and the neoliberal model only causes misery, inequality, and a crazy individualism from consumerist societies against enormous deprivation for billions of people. Excellencies, the war in Ukraine must end. All of humanity must find a way to achieve peace. We cannot live with the permanent threat of a conflict that might mean the end of our planet. It's important to stop with the practice of sanctions, piracy, and confiscating the assets of one nation against another. We can't talk about a civilized world when we live with the risk of being embargoed and our accounts being frozen in foreign banks. This is currently happening to Venezuela, whose assets have been confiscated against all norms of international law. This United Nations Assembly every year demands the end of the blockade against Cuba, which is an arbitrary, outdated measure contrary to international law. It's a measure that violates the principle of respect for the self-determination of peoples. And it sacrifices a noble people who, despite the limitations imposed upon it, continues to contribute its solidarity to the world. We condemn the long-standing and cruel blockade against Cuba and against Venezuela. Further, we demand the removal of Cuba from the list of terrorist countries. This is a manipulative, false, and capricious measure. Similarly, the unfair measures and sanctions against Nicaragua must be removed, because they are barriers that prevent us from normalizing our relations with this kindred country. I believe in a multipolar world where exchange and cooperation for development are based on the principles of independence, sovereignty, and non-interference. On the basis of these principles, a couple of months ago, I officially opened relations with the People's Republic of China. Likewise, we have reached out to financial organizations and innovative initiatives for us, such as the Andean Development Corporation, CAF, and we have already joined as a member of that corporation. Further, also the administration of the BRICS New Development Bank. I wish to reiterate, as I did at the CELAC European Union Summit, our vehement call for the release of Julian Assange, a faithful defender of free expression, a principle that we must all defend. In defense of the indigenous peoples who fight for land and for rivers, I feel proud as a woman to convey the message of our compatriot and our martyr, Berta Cáceres. Wake up, humanity. Time is running out. Thank you very much.
Au nom de l'Assemblée générale.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Honduras for the statement just made.
The President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, opened her speech by underlining the importance of gender equality and the access to decision-making bodies, as herself is the first female president of that Central American nation. She also recalled how her government supported social policies that guaranteed dignity for the poor and how with that strategy they saw a rise in school children attendance. She called for fighting corruption and impunity, especially in LATAM states where unlawful organizations have a strong grip on the governments. And she also condemned capitalist overconsumption as it only makes poorer the already poor nations. She demanded the lifting of the embargo against Cuba and Venezuela and remembered Berta Cáceres. We will have more details in upcoming news briefs. Stay with us.